dog that costs more than a Porsche. A dog so massive it looks like a lion walked into your living room. A dog so legendary that Chinese billionaires once waged bidding wars over puppies like they were fine art. The Tibetan Mastiff isn't just a breed, it's a status symbol, a fortune, and a mystery all wrapped in fur. Today we're counting down the 10 reasons Tibetan Mastiffs cost more than most cars. And number 1 will leave you speechless. Let's dive in. Number 10. Lion in disguise. You don't look at a Tibetan Mastiff, you experience one. Males can weigh up to 150 pounds and stand nearly 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Their thick double coat creates a mane around their neck that makes them look less like a dog and more like a lion that wandered off the Serengeti. That appearance alone drives prices sky high. Wealthy buyers in China and the Middle East pay premium prices specifically for the most lion-like specimens. The thicker the mane, the broader the head, the higher the price tag. You're not buying a pet. You're buying a living legend. But wait until you hear about number 9. Number 9. Bloodlines worth millions. Not all Tibetan Mastiffs are created equal. The difference between a $5,000 dog and a $2 million dog comes down to one thing, a bloodline. Certain lineages trace back directly to the ancient monastery dogs of Tibet. These are the dogs that guarded Himalayan temples and stood beside kings. Breeders who can document this ancestry command astronomical prices. In 2014, a Chinese property developer paid nearly $2 million for a single Tibetan Mastiff puppy with a verified royal bloodline. That's not a typo. $2 million for one dog. Because in the world of Tibetan Mastiffs, pedigree isn't just paperwork. It's a license to print money. Number 8. They guard what's sacred. Tibetan Mastiffs were bred for one purpose: to protect. Not your backyard, not your living room. Entire villages, monasteries, herds of livestock against wolves and snow leopards at 15,000 feet in the Himalayas. That guarding instinct is so deeply wired that it never turns off. They patrol your property at night like a sentry on duty. They bark at anything that crosses their perimeter. And they will not back down from any threat, real or imagined. That fearlessness is exactly what wealthy buyers want. A living security system that doesn't just alert you to danger, it eliminates it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Number 7. The feeding bill alone. Think the purchase price is the expensive part? Think again. A full-grown Tibetan Mastiff eats between 4 and 6 cups of premium kibble daily. That's roughly $800 to $1,000 a year just in food. But serious owners don't feed kibble. They feed raw diets with beef liver, lamb ribs, salmon oil, and supplements for joint health and coat condition. That monthly grocery bill? $300 to $500. Minimum. Then there's the grooming. Professional grooming for a Tibetan Mastiff runs $200 to $400 per session. They need it every 6 to 8 weeks. The upkeep alone costs more than most people's car payment. Number 6. Breeding is a gamble. Breeding Tibetan Mastiffs isn't like breeding other dogs. It's high-stakes poker with live animals. Litters are small, often just 4 to 6 puppies. Many pregnancies fail. Mortality rates in newborns are higher than most breeds because of the puppy's size and the mother's physical limitations. A breeder invests thousands in health testing, genetic screening, progesterone monitoring, and veterinary care before a single mating even happens. Then they wait 63 days hoping the pregnancy holds. When a healthy litter is born, every puppy represents months of risk and thousands of dollars in investment. That's why each puppy carries a premium. The breeder isn't just selling a dog, they're recouping a gamble that could have easily gone the other way. Number 5. The China Bubble. In the early 2000s, something extraordinary happened. Tibetan Mastiffs became the ultimate luxury accessory among China's new ultra-rich. Prices exploded. Puppies that once sold for a few $1,000s were suddenly commanding hundreds of thousands. One reportedly sold for nearly $2 million. Breeders couldn't produce them fast enough, but bubbles burst. By 2015, the market collapsed. Prices cratered. Thousands of Tibetan Mastiffs were abandoned or sent to slaughterhouses because their owners no longer wanted them once the status symbol faded. It was one of the darkest chapters in dog breeding history. But the legend of those record-shattering prices? That never died. And it's still what people think of when they hear the name. But wait, there's something even more surprising. Number 4. Ancient royal currency. Here's something most people don't know. Tibetan Mastiffs weren't just guard dogs. They were diplomatic gifts between empires. Ancient Chinese emperors received Tibetan Mastiffs from the Tibetan Plateau as offerings of peace and alliance. Genghis Khan reportedly kept them in his war camps. European royalty bred them into modern Mastiff lines. These dogs weren't just valued, they were currency. They sealed treaties. They represented power. When you buy a Tibetan Mastiff today, you're not just purchasing a breed. You're purchasing a piece of history that kings once traded for land and loyalty. That kind of legacy doesn't come cheap, and it never will. Number 3. The veterinary nightmare. Tibetan Mastiffs are hardy in the Himalayas. In your neighborhood? Not so much. They're prone to hypothyroidism, elbow dysplasia, hip dysplasia, and tropion, a painful eye condition where the eyelid rolls inward, and a fatal neurological condition called canine-inherited demyelinative neuropathy. Treating any one of these conditions costs thousands. Hip replacement surgery runs between $3,000 and $5,000 per hip. Emergency bloat surgery, at which this giant breed is dangerously susceptible to, can cost upward of $5,000 overnight. Pet insurance for a Tibetan Mastiff is among the most expensive of any breed. If you can't afford the vet bills, you can't afford this dog. Period. But number 2 is the cost nobody expects. Number 2, the property damage tax. You brought home a 150-pound guardian bred to fight snow leopards. Now it's bored. A bored Tibetan Mastiff doesn't just chew furniture, it restructures your home. Doors scratched to splinters. Fences dug under or simply pushed through. Drywall cratered by a head the size of a watermelon. Landscaping destroyed by a dog that digs craters when it's anxious. One owner reported their Tibetan Mastiff ate through a wooden garage door because a stray cat was on the other side. When your dog can physically dismantle your house, the repair bills add up fast. Replacing a fence line alone runs thousands. This breed doesn't just cost money to own, but it costs money to survive owning. And this leads us to the number 1 reason. Number 1. Exclusivity is the price. The number 1 reason Tibetan Mastiffs cost more than most cars? Because that's exactly what the market wants them to cost. This breed sits at the intersection of rarity, mythology, and human ego. There are only a handful of reputable breeders worldwide producing verified Tibetan Mastiffs with clean health lines and documented ancestry. Demand permanently outstrips supply, and when billionaires, celebrities, and royalty all want the same incredibly rare dog, the price stops reflecting the animal and starts reflecting the exclusivity. You're not paying for fur and bone. You're paying for the privilege of saying you own something almost nobody else on Earth can have. It's the same reason a Patek Philippe costs more than a Rolex. It's not about telling time. It's about telling the world who you are. And Tibetan Mastiffs have been telling that story for 3,000 years. So guys, 3,000 years of guarding temples, surviving the Himalayas, standing beside kings. The Tibetan Mastiff doesn't just cost a fortune, it is one. Would you ever pay that much for a dog? Drop them in the comments. I love hearing your stories. Until next time.